something wrong. You don't know what it is, but it's there.
Nah, I definitely agree with that shit.
Right.
Damn, Beretta, man. Fuck. Bro, I know you got bicycle, man, but you gotta think sometimes. Shit. Some of this shit don't even call for. Bro, I was talking to my suckers on the wall. Listen, mirror on the wall. Who the really nigga in it?
Alright, so based on the fact that I already touched on California in last week's episode, I think it'll be a little easier to go ahead and piggyback on that and specifically narrow it down to Los Angeles. So we're going to start with Los Angeles. Los Angeles, as like I was stating on last week's show, Los Angeles is mainly known for Hollywood. That's an obvious, you know what I mean? But there are also a lot of other fun facts that I learned about Los Angeles that was kind of interesting. Now, for y'all that's familiar with the United States of America, you're probably familiar with the fact that there's a city, and with the city itself sits in a county. The county and the city are generally two different things of the same region. That's just to, just to piggyback off that, just to throw that out there before I make this next point. Now, in a city like Los Angeles, from what I understand, the city of Los Angeles has gotten so big that it also incorporates more than one county. I thought that was kind of interesting, you know what I mean? Like, they have all these surrounding areas that's pretty much all a part of the, I guess, Los Angeles area. And New York, from what I understand, kind of has that too, but they have boroughs, but I mean, it's still considered counties, you know what I mean? Like Queens, Jamaica, all that type of stuff like that. I mean, it's different down south, so I could only speak to how it is down south. I mean, you have the city that sits inside the county. On these bigger places, it's different. Like I said, some of these cities might have 3 or 4 counties in them. But I thought that was pretty cool. We touched on the interstate. Like, it's not the longest interstate, but it's one of the longest interstates. Just so y'all know, the longest one is up north. I-10, I think, is one of the most southern interstates that runs from east to west, or whatever, west to east, or however you want to look at it. But from Los Angeles, from the beach that touched the Pacific Ocean, you can drive on that shit all the way to the Atlantic, you know what I mean, and get off at Jacksonville. But outside of that, if you really take Hollywood out, right, if we just talking about the whole thing, outside of that, I mean, it's not really a whole lot going on for the common person. I mean, I know cost of living is fucked up. I mean, I can just tell by the gas prices, that shit is fucked up over there, you know what I mean? And then on top of that, it's not the climate that everybody's so ingratiated. Don't get me wrong, now, Los Angeles has a lot of sunshine, they have a lot of kind of good beach weather, but at the same fucking time, right? They got so much traffic and cars and shit like that. So a lot of that shit get canceled out by the smog and the smoky pollution and shit, man. They say, like, it's hard to even breathe over that motherfucker. And speaking of cars and shit like that, I've been relatively around America, you know what I'm saying? I haven't really like been to every major city and shit like that. Now, I know in Atlanta, traffic be fucked up. Now, from what I've seen, I haven't actually seen it with my own eyes, but just from like the research that I've done, Los Angeles traffic is worse than Atlanta's traffic. For me, I'm like, damn, how could anything be worse than that? But then I see some of the clips that they be showing, man, and it's like, all them fucking lanes, they have all these fucking lanes on their shit, and them shit still be fucking packed. Motherfuckers can't even get here, can't get there. Like, to get fucking 5 miles from one side of town to the other side of town take 45 to an hour. Like, that shit's crazy. But yeah, now population wise, I know Los Angeles also is kind of split up of so many different. Really, it was individual cities, little smaller cities that all kind of eventually got engulfed by the Los Angeles area. Like I said, I mean, I know a lot of people gonna be familiar with like the Beverly Hills and stuff like that, but like Watts, Compton, all of those areas like that, they all started as their own kind of little thing, but then they ended up becoming kind of like how Monticello, Quincy, and Lloyd and all of these other areas are part of the greater Tallahassee area, and I guess over time they just kind of engulfed them all up. But far as I know, area-wise, it does take up a pretty big area. Like I said, that's why I know a lot of, it's more than one county, I think, incorporated within that area, because, I mean, that Los Angeles region reaches out over a good part of California. And I mean, now, as far as we already kind of touched on the weather, they also have those fault lines over there. So they have a lot going on as far as plate tectonics, and they say they do for a big earthquake, shit like that. Never been in an earthquake, not trying to, like, wish no bad or wish no ill will, but I just know that that fault line shit is dangerous. I mean, like I said, you can see a hurricane, you can watch the news, you can like hear somebody else watch the news, somebody else can tell you, hey, it's a hurricane, it's a storm coming, you know what I mean? Or you could just look up at the fucking sky and see like, damn, okay, that shit look nasty, that shit look ugly. But if I'm just in a building, I'm at work, and all of a sudden that shit just start fucking shaking and shit start falling, I don't know how you prepare for that. I don't know how you get right for that. But apparently they familiar with it. Another thing about Los Angeles too is like, it's glitz and glamour, but not like New York glitz and glamour, because that shit do got a dark side. Like the dark side, like the crime area is way more wilder. Like when I think of like Los Angeles, that shit wild over there. Like, you know what I mean? Like you can't be over there just on some gangster shit talking about, yeah, nigga did that, cause like them boys, like they kill for turf over there. Like, you know what I mean? That shit is real fucking wild. There's no real structure. Like, matter of fact, like that's a good segue to how I'm pretty much bring it the New York style. So we covered pretty much the weather. We pretty much covered like the glitz, the glamour, the Hollywood scenario. As far as cost of living, that shit is high. So basically, what I'm saying is, in order to thrive or enjoy that shit, you got to be somebody, or you got to be a motherfucker who knows somebody, or you got something going on in the world. You got some motion. You know what I'm saying? If you just the average Joe, you know what I'm saying, just making minimum wage, your ass probably gonna suffer. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna start robbing one. You know what I mean? Either one. But yeah. So as far as the way they like kind of oversell it, don't get me wrong. Now, I mean, I would love to go. I mean, I don't have nothing against Los Angeles. I'm just pointing out the goods and the bad. But don't worry, New York, we finna get on y'all ass too. You know what I mean? Because everybody like be saying one thing and it's a whole nother thing. But now let's go and focus on the New York side. Alright, so for the New Yorker, yeah, and I did my homework for you motherfuckers too, because I know y'all, goddamn it, yeah, y'all like to point out facts, okay? But on the for real tip, right? New York City, not the state of New York, like New York City is, from everything that I've read, is the biggest city in America. Not big by land, like, you know what I mean? And to me, that's fucking crazy. Because land-wise, shit is actually relatively small as fuck, you know what I mean? But the amount of people within that small space is ridiculous. All right, put it like this. Let's say, let me see. Let me think of what's a good way to explain it. Let's say basically you got 100-mile radius, right? Now within this 100-mile radius, you put the whole city of fucking Miami or something, like a big ass city within a little small area. Like all the population, all the grocery stores, all that shit, all on top of each other. And what you end up with is fucking New York, believe it or not. But the difference is, one thing that sets them apart from like a Los Angeles or something like that is they was the original. New York City is the money, economic home of the world, basically. I mean, but I know at least for America, because that's where trade starts. That's like the world trade. That's what business, those ports. Miami ports, y'all know what Miami ports is known for. But the original, like when they was doing the Constitution and all that, a lot of like the normal stuff, like the teas and salts and sugars and all that shit, came through a lot of those New York hubs, and that's how America began to immerse itself as one of the world's leading powerhouses, superpower is what they would call it, as far as economically speaking. And New York played a big part in that. Now, the city of New York is comprised of, like I was saying about Los Angeles. The county shit is a little different. Like I say, from where I'm from, you have a county. Then within that county, you have the city. Now, every once in a while, you'll get a city that's big enough to metropolize, meaning that the city limits comes all the way out to the county line, like in Miami. It's Miami-Dade because the city of Miami extends out to the Dade County line. Now, in Monticello, we are in Jefferson County. You know what I mean? Jefferson County is way bigger than the city of Monticello. Same thing with Leon County, so on and so forth. But eventually, they're saying that the cities will, expand and grow. Like Jacksonville, I want to think is on the verge of not already becoming a metropolis. But I said all of that to say this. In New York's case, because of the trade and the commerce and all the economic stuff that they had going on, something very interesting happened. From what I read, like I said, I'm not from New York, so y'all New Yorkers don't come down here talking, oh, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going off the information that's public record. The Bronx, Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, Jamaica, all of these are, they call them boroughs, but they're actually different counties of the New York City area. I thought that was kind of interesting. So what actually ends up happening is a lot of these places are completely different. Even New Jersey is a whole different city, a whole different state. All that shit is different, but they still consider that within that tri-state area. You know what I mean? Because of the population is so fucking hectic. Now, if you think at 5 o'clock traffic in Tallahassee is fucked up, they say people don't even drive in New York. Like, that's how fucked up that shit is. Like, motherfuckers walk. Like, it's literally quicker to get 6, 7 blocks cross town on foot. Like, you know what I mean? That's just something you don't really think of in the South or out West because of the spatial. Now, the only other good side to that is having everything so compact is nothing really is that far away, technically. But at the same time, it also brings a lot of people of different ethnicities, a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different cultures, and everybody ain't on that follow the law shit. You know what I mean? And they try to look at a lot of, you know what I'm saying, not trying to get racial, but I know a lot of times when shit happens, like motherfuckers getting murdered and motherfuckers selling dope and shit, you look at niggas, you know what I'm saying? You just assume that black people doing it. But what New York ended up doing is it showed that blacks were not the only disenfranchised. There were a lot of others that came and they saw opportunity and they kind of colored outside the lines, if you want to speak. Because in these other countries, that shit different. Like, everybody don't do this democracy shit like how they do it in America. A lot of those places, like, they have dictators. They have people who, like, own shit and they run the whole fucking country. Long story short, a lot of that is what kind of tied into the mob and all of this influence that they had, and they had major influence. Like, the organization is what set New York City like apart, because it's a lot of money, it's a lot of people, it's a lot of shit going on. But it's not wild. It's never been wild like a Los Angeles or anything like that, because it was always structured. There was always some set of rules, some type of guidelines, because there was always somebody else that was waiting to take your spot. But there was formalities and there was ways that they went about it. And I thought that was kind of interesting, you know what I mean, to say the least. But the money is what gave them so much power, because it's like this. If you're running $1 billion organization, you don't know what all businesses those $1 billion tied up into. Yeah, you know what I mean? You might not realize that this campaign or this governor or this person that's running for president and all of this, he may be getting his donations or his contributions from somebody that he might not tell you, but he might be affiliated with all type of other enterprises. Let's say that, you know what I mean? But the reason why I'm saying it all like that is because generally in New York, you have everybody on top of each other. Like, even when it comes down to the street levels, like the projects. Like Marcy's projects. I looked at that shit. Like Queensbridge, like your homeboy Nas. Nas from Queensbridge. Like, I'm looking at it like, I know what the projects look like. I'm looking at their projects. I'm like, that's the projects? Like, that shit look like a fucking skyscraper, you know what I mean? But the point is they have to build it on top. Like everything down south gets kind of spread out. I think in the west, kind of the same. It kind of spread out, but they got all the mountains and shit, so it's different. New York, everything is on top of each other. Like they saying that they got certain buildings, some of those big ass buildings got complete. They got their own zip codes in them shits. Like I know the Chrysler building, I think does, and the Empire State building, I think. I want to think the Twin Towers did too before they came down, and I didn't realize how much stuff they had in those buildings. There was like, but those people, there's certain people now. You got to have money to pull this out, but certain people have their apartment, have a job, and have all of their facilities in the same building. Could you imagine that shit? Like if you need to go grocery shopping, you need to go to work, you don't have to fucking leave the building. Like that shit kind of, you know what I mean? Like it makes you start thinking like, well, goddamn. But that also makes the territory that much more valuable. Just like if y'all watch The Wire, y'all know I'm fucked up about The Wire. That's why they were so serious about them towers, even though that was Baltimore, but it was the same principle. If you control this area, this region, but it's fucking 2 million people within this region, right? You know what I mean? If you get $1 from every person of a 2 million person populated region, that's $2 million. Just getting $1 from everybody, you know what I mean? So the point is, like, people, population, and money played a lot in New York's development. Now, with that being said, to compare the two, I feel like really wouldn't be fair without throwing in some major things. Now, weather. New York, I love y'all. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean, I love the shit y'all present as far as TV wise, as far as style wise. I know y'all like the hip hop birthplace and all that shit. But weather, I ain't seen shit by nothing that say y'all have good weather. Like nothing. You know what I mean? Like a good day would probably be like a summer day where it's not blistering cold, it's not snow everywhere. But other than that, I mean, I will say this. Far as I know, they not on no fault lines or nothing like that. So they're not having like earthquakes and shit like over in Los Angeles. And they not really down south on the coastline. So they not really dealing with like the hurricanes and shit like how we are in Florida. But that shit cold as fuck, man. And it's like this. Because it's cold and all that snow and all these people on top of each other and all this shit like this and that, it makes getting around that much more aggravating. So it's like this. So even though y'all ain't got like earthquakes and y'all ain't got like hurricanes and shit like making travel hard, just the fucking population and the snow is making it hard. Can you imagine being snowed out? You already can't fucking, you don't want to drive through the traffic. Now you can't even get your car at the goddamn driveway because it's fucking snowed in. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy to me. But I do know that the cost of living there is also fucked up. Matter of fact, they cost of living so fucked up. I tell y'all to do this, right? I know it ain't the whole New York City, you know what I'm saying? But like the main place, especially Manhattan. If you look at any type of pictures of Manhattan, you notice you don't even see regular stores in that motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? You ever seen a Winn-Dixie in Manhattan? You ever seen a fucking, like just a regular ass store that you probably see all the time? Like you don't even see them shits. It's like, well, damn, you feel me? But that's because of the amount of people there, their population there. So I do know that their minimum wage is higher. On average, they make more. But rent, gas, all that shit is through the roof. You know what I mean? Me personally, I don't like being up under motherfuckers, so I don't think that population shit is gonna be that wouldn't be something that I would see as a advantage. You know what I mean? But a lot of people see that as if you trying to network, you trying to become somebody, you trying to make it in like a music or a television or any type of entertainment, sport wise. Yeah, New York would be big, but you know, it's just a preference type of thing. So whether I can't give New York no nothing on that. Now as far as sensibilities and iconicness and all of that shit, yeah, New York's probably gonna take the cake over Los Angeles in that, just because that Statue of Liberty for one, that Hudson River, and a lot of those buildings, those skyscrapers was like the tallest in the world until everybody else started peeping game. It was like, no, man, we ain't gonna let y'all skyline outdo us, you know what I'm saying? But at the time, New York was always seen like, that's all I seen. When I thought of New York, it was just a big ass building. I didn't even associate like Buffalo and Syracuse and all that shit with New York until I was old enough to realize that New York City ain't the same as New York State. You know what I'm saying? I just thought all that shit was Manhattan. But that's why I said, well, yeah, there's probably a lot of other people who think like that too. Same thing with Los Angeles. You'll be surprised. A lot of people just see Los Angeles and assume that the whole California is fucking Sunset Boulevard and fucking, you know what I'm saying, motherfuckers driving down with these fucking drop tops and 6'4s and shit like that. But it's not. So I would say out of the two, New York is probably going to be a bigger financial hub. It's going to probably be a bigger economic boom. Probably going to have a lot more to do with financials. Los Angeles would probably have to do more with visuals. Like visual, like if you're trying to be like an entertainer or actor, you're trying to be in a movie or something like that, then Los Angeles is probably going to be where you'll stand out because there's just so many people in New York so you'll just be another face in the crowd. You know what I'm saying? But Los Angeles, I mean, that shit is Hollywood. I mean, they got the fucking Walk of Star of Fame or whatever that shit is over there. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's so much that you can do to promote yourself as an individual in Los Angeles versus just being another number of a statistic in New York City. So, with that being said, none of them is Florida to me. So, Florida would be my pick. But out of the two, it depends on what we talking about. If we talking about the visit, I want to visit both of them shits, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like I would probably enjoy more going to Los Angeles because Los Angeles would be more what I'm familiar with. Just, you know, the sun and all that shit. Outside of seeing them big ass buildings and shit, like I think like that would captivate me with New York City. But outside of that, like that stalling and traffic, and one thing about it, that walking shit dead though. Like that's fucking dead. If it's already cold and it's already snowing and shit, and then you telling me that it's quicker to get to where I'm going by walking, you got me fucked up. You got me fucked up, man. It's like this. Even in Florida, like, you know what I'm saying? Motherfuckers, you'd be surprised. If you got to, you got to. You know what I'm saying? But when you hot, you trying to get to where you got to go. When you freezing, man, you don't know what the fuck, man. You can die in that shit, man. That hypothermia shit is crazy. One thing about being hot, you gonna try your best to get up out that shit. So wherever you walking to, you walking fast as fuck, man. Man, hot at this shit. You get irritated, so you ain't with the bullshit. You ain't even playing. But on that cold shit, man, that's a whole nother aspect. See, I don't think it get like that in Los Angeles now. You know what I'm saying? Now, as far as everything else, I think they kind of like balance themselves out. Now, I do know land area-wise, Los Angeles is going to dominate that. Population-wise, New York City has that. And now the ins and outs as far as foods and all of that shit, now y'all going to have to debate that amongst each other because I ain't never been to either one. Just on its face value, that's just what I see when I think of these two big iconic American cities that for some reason these two cities seem to represent their whole state when their whole state is nowhere near like what these cities are. That would be the equivalent of me saying the whole Florida is Miami. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not. Because if you ever been, like, to northern Florida, that shit looks nothing like southern Florida. You know what I mean? But that's just some like, people, like, as in on the inside. But I think a lot of people think New York City is New York State, and same thing with California. So, if I had to give an overall winner, I'm going to go with Los Angeles just because I fuck with I-10, and it's on I-10. New York, I would love to see that shit, but I feel like I could see that shit on TV and be just as captivated. But I know I probably would be more captivated seeing it live, but I'm not going to, like, be fucked up if I don't. Like, Los Angeles, I feel like, okay, yeah, I can see that shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, I could see that being a little more favorable for me. So, man, I tell y'all what, that was fun. We're going to do a lot more geographic shit. I got some surprises coming for y'all this season, too, man. So, y'all check me out next week, man. See what we talking about then. Holla at me.